So today we're going to cover two new aspects of Flex, and that's going to be the Advanced Forms Editor and the Help Center. We're going to go through the forms first, and we'll talk about the templates that are provided to you now, as well as how we're going to edit them. And I'll also stop at the end of that section to make sure that I'm able to answer any questions there. And then we'll spend the last few minutes of the webinar talking about the Help Center and the new resources that are available to you when you're trying to get support. So the first thing that we'll do is take a look at our forms. Now, to access your custom forms, you're going to want to sign in to Flex. When you sign in, you do need to see that gear icon in the upper left-hand corner of your settings. If you sign into Flex and you don't see the gear icon, it means you're not listed as an administrative user, and you can chat with our support team or the administrator for your practice to be able to adjust those settings. The next thing that we'll want to do is come right into the settings there, and you'll see this top option for enabling your advanced forms. We do want to toggle on our advanced forms here, and you're going to see this pop up letting you know the changes that you can expect to see here. We'll go ahead and click yes, and you'll notice some modification to the menu items at the top. Now, the first thing that we'll talk about is the ability to add a logo here. So you can add a logo to your forms. If you need to change it, you can simply click on the logo there and be able to upload a new file. You also have the ability to choose an accent color so we can keep your branding consistent through your forms. To change that color, you can just touch the circle here and then be able to select another color that works well for your practice. Now, if we look at our logo here, something to make sure we can mention is that it does need to be a PNG or a JPEG file to work for the upload there. So something to keep an eye on as you're selecting the logo that you'd want to use. If we look at the fields along the top, the form builder will come back to. It's essentially where all of your forms are going to be housed. The medications, conditions, allergies, and referrals all pull directly from your Open Dental list. So if we're looking at our medications, for example, each of these categories represents elements of the form that the patient can view. You can rename these categories, you can delete them, and you can also take listings from the Open Dental list and add them into those categories. So let's say we wanted to add acetaminophen into our pain list here. We can add it in. We can click that alphabetize button, which alphabetizes all of the listings in their categories. And if we have certain medications or conditions that we might want to leave off of our form, we can just simply drag them back over into the Open Dental list. Now at the top, if you want to completely clear the selections, you can do that with the Clear Medication list. And then when you are looking to add categories, you would use that Add Category button here. Now, if we look at our conditions, we can see that there's a little language toggle up here in the upper right corner of our screen. Flex has the ability to support those forms in multiple languages. So if we look at Spanish, for example, here, we might want to use Spanish forms for our Spanish-speaking patients. And when we convert this over to Spanish, we can see that it is not yet translated. All we need to do is hit that automatic translation button, and it's going to convert the English medications or conditions to their Spanish equivalents. Now, when your patient is filling out the form, they'll see all these items listed in Spanish, and when they make those selections, they're going to come back into the Open Dental chart matched to their English versions. If you ever want to reference the actual item that they selected, you'll always be able to see the Spanish item on the PDF that files into the images there. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and go through a health history update with our new forms so that you can see some of that information that's going to be available for you. We're going to look at our patient Junior here today. And first, we're going to start with the family information folder. If we come into Junior's profile, we can select his health history update to complete. And the first thing that you'll notice here is going to be the accent color that we've chosen. So the accent color is going to be listed up here at the top, and we've got your logo that'll display here. Now we're looking at the health history template, which Flex provides for you. We'll cover the templates in a little bit additional detail here in a moment, but we do provide templates for you for both new patient forms and health history updates. The templates can be adjusted however you need to. So what you're seeing here is all of this information pre-populating from Open Dental. So for example, we've got our mailing address that's filling in from that patient's Open Dental chart. So if we want to change that, we'll go ahead and switch it out to Tooth Avenue, for example. And once we submit the form, I'll show you how that will come through into Flex and Open Dental. We're always going to automatically ask the patient if we can send out those appointment reminders via text and email. And then once we're done updating our personal details, we can update our chart as well. So Flex reads the information that's in the patient's existing Open Dental chart. So for us, we've got asthma listed as a previous condition, and we can see that here on our form. Now, asthma is part of that lung or breathing category, which you could set up in that earlier screen that we were taking a look at, where you can customize the categories and leave off certain medications or conditions. Maybe asthma is no longer relevant for us. We'll uncheck it there, and we'll switch it for high blood pressure. Now, if your patient has any conditions that they didn't find listed in the listing above, they can always say yes here, and then they'll be able to freely type those conditions. I'll use example condition for now. The next section for medications works very similarly. So we had previously indicated that we were taking Flonase, and we can see that on our Flex form. So we can uncheck Flonase here. We'll go ahead and check pain instead, and we'll switch that out for aspirin. Patient can always provide you with any additional medications that are necessary that are not listed. And the two questions at the bottom for recreational drugs and smoking are part of the dynamic aspect of the form. So what we mean by that is that those questions can actually respond to the information that was given to them previously on the form. So we've used conditional logic to be able to link questions together. If we're seeing questions about recreational drugs and smoking, it's because we're over the age of 15, and those would be age-appropriate questions. So if mom was completing this form for her 3-year-old, she's not going to see questions about drugs and smoking. Instead, her questions are going to say, does your child have any thumb-sucking habits? Does your child have any developmental disorders? We'll make sure that both the content of the question and the way that it's worded is appropriate for the patient. And I'll show you how we can do that with our forms in just a moment. Now, when we're done with our section for our chart there, we can come into the insurance window. We do have the ability for your patient to give you all the information that the office needs to verify the coverage, and we'll go ahead and provide those details here. Now, they can even upload a photo of their insurance card. So you can include as many photo uploads throughout your form as you think would be appropriate. Most offices are going to use that for things like getting a picture of an insurance card. You can also have the patient take a selfie and store it as their thumbnail in Open Dental if you want to eliminate that step from their first visit. If a patient is completing a form on the computer and they want to use their phone to take a picture, they can also click this link here, and they'll be texted a link that they can use to upload the picture instead so that they don't have to worry about emailing it to themselves. We'll go ahead and upload our photo here, and then we'll go to the next section. Now, for most offices, the last section of the form is probably going to be for your policies. So you've got the opportunity to include up to 4 individual policies. They can all be selected for the specific form that you want them to be on. So whether you want something like cancellations and missed appointments to go to your new patient forms and your health history updates, or perhaps you just want them on one form or the other, you can decide where those policies should live on which forms. When we're done, we'll go ahead and click the Submit button. It'll take just a moment for it to send over into Flex. And once the form is successfully received, the patient's going to see a green check mark indicating that that form was received successfully. Now, if we look back over into Flex, we can see, into Open Dental, we can see that that patient's address was updated automatically. So we didn't have to take any steps to import it there. In the chart, we can also see that the date and time were included in the medical summary section so that our team knows the details of when the form was updated. We added in that example condition that the patient freely typed and the high blood pressure that they checked. And the asthma that was unchecked is now listed with a stop date and an inactive status. So you'll always have that information retained as a permanent part of their record, but we're making sure that you can see when they made changes. Medications behave very similarly. So we've got the inactive medication listed here that we unchecked and our new aspirin that's listed as our active medication. Now, a note on each of these boxes. One thing that's really nice about the new advanced forms is that you can decide if certain questions should read into these areas here. So if there's details that you want to live beyond the PDF, you can import them in various ways in OpenDental, which we'll cover when we look at the form. If we look at the imaging section, we've got that insurance card that we uploaded saved for us automatically. You also get to select which folder those images should file into. And then we also have the PDF copy of the health history form. So we've always got that digital paper trail that the patient completed. Now, I've put together a form for us. And one thing that's going to be helpful when you're creating custom forms is just to know that you can actually create custom fields in OpenDental as well. And those fields can be tied back to questions in the form. So what we'll do to add a patient information field is come into their setup and we'll go into our patient field defs here. I'm going to go ahead and click that add button and we'll add the referring practice name here. And now if we refresh our family window, we can see that referring practice name is available for us. We'll use that in the next section of our webinar for today. Now, if we're looking at our Flex form, we're going to go ahead and sign into Flex here and have the ability to access the form editor. We'll take a look first at that health history update that we just completed. So once we pull up the health history update, there's a few things that are going to be important to note. Actually, I'm going to hop back one screen here. On the landing page where we're listing all of your forms, the new patient form and the health history update are both going to be included for you in English and Spanish by default with your installation. Any other custom fields that you build are also going to be listed here for you as well. The icons on the side will allow you to copy the form link. A very important piece of the URL that you need to know here. If you were previously using our old form editor and you have your forms linked to your website, when you switch over to the new forms editor, you need to change the URL that's hosted on your site so that patients can have access to the new form you just worked hard to build. Now, once you're making changes to the editor, all of that information will still be housed in the same URL. There's no need to update it when you're making changes. The only time you do need to update it is when you are changing from old forms to new forms. Now, the next icon that you're going to see is going to allow you to download forms. So this is very helpful if you're sharing forms among colleagues or you have multiple locations for your practice. You can save and download forms and then upload them into another Flex account to be able to share them that way. And then, of course, you've always got the option to delete the form if you want to remove it from the listing. So if we select our health history here, we are going to edit the form. And a couple details to note when we get into this page. So you're going to be able to set a title for each of those forms. And you're also going to be able to set a language. This correlates back to those language translations for the medications and conditions that we looked at a bit earlier. Now, this toggle here is going to allow us for you to tell us if this is a new patient form, a health history update, or something else. The new patient form and health history options are going to be what we use to track the patient's frequency. So when we check that a patient is due for a form, we're checking that they have one of these two characteristics present for them. The update button is going to be how you save a form. So anytime you're making changes, you'll always go ahead and hit update there. Once you're saved, you'll see that success message. And then preview allows you to open up a preview of the form so you can see it as you're working on it. Down here, we've got the Create New Form button. That's what you're going to use when you need to start fresh with the form. The Import Flex Form is the button that you'll use once you've downloaded it from the previous window. You can import it into a new Flex account with this button. And the Watch Video button goes over some in-depth details on the form editor so that you can have all those information pieces for future reference as well. Now, there's two sections to this page. On the left side here, we've got the form listed in entirety. So you can see all of the elements, what order they're in, and how that form is going to read. On the right-hand side, you have all of the elements that are able to be added to the form. The elements are broken up into three different sections. There's really three types that you can use. The first type is going to be things like headers, paragraphs, text fields, radio groups, elements that are completely customizable. The second section is going to be things like conditions, medications, and referrals that tie back to open dental equivalents. The last two on the bottom are complete templates for new patient and health history updates. So if you get to making edits and maybe you get lost in where you were, changing things and you want to revert back to where you started, you can always do that. It's just as simple as going ahead and clicking create a new form and then clicking that health history button. It'll put that full template right back in so you can start with a clean slate there. Now, I actually prepared a form for us. So what we're going to do is take a look at the form that I already created, and then we're going to duplicate it so you can see exactly what that would look for our patient. So what we're going to create here is a referral form that might be a creative use for offices who have referring providers. So we'll go ahead and split our screen here. And we'll be able to duplicate this. So we'll come into our form builder. A couple of details on our form. We've got several different elements here like headers, paragraphs. We've got text boxes where we're asking for information. We've even got details like date of birth and certain radio buttons. And we've got some conditional logic built in here where questions are only going to show based on the previous answer to a question. So what we'll do here is come into the Create New Form option, and we'll give it a title. So we'll call it Smile Dental Referral Form, and we'll do version 2. I'm going to keep the language as English, and then I'm going to keep it set for none here. The first thing that we need to do is insert a header. So we'll go ahead and talk about these different elements that you're seeing within the categories. The reference is going to be what we use to link the questions together. So later on, when we're enabling that conditional logic question, we're going to tie it into the reference here for a previous question. It's also used when you're importing details into Open Dental. You're going to be able to use the reference to tell you what question the patient was answering at the time. We'll go ahead and use the reference as header there. The label is the outward facing text. So this is where we'll put Smile Dental's referral form. Conditional text is going to be used if you'd like to change the wording. So when we talked earlier, we chatted about a mom having a bit different set of questions than someone who's asking or who's being asked questions about drugs and smoking. We can do that through conditional text. So we can change the label there. And when a patient is under a specific age, we'll see that new label. So that's how instead of asking, do you have any medical conditions? We can say, does your child have any medical conditions by using the conditional text. For our application today, we don't need to use that. Now for this header, we've got a type here. For the headers 1 through 6 is just delineating the size. So we're going to go ahead and use maybe a 4 here. Now the subline is one way that we could get this text underneath. We're actually going to use a paragraph, but if you wanted it to just be in line simply the way you see it here, you can also use the subline for that. The width is going to dictate how much real estate as far as width on the form. So if we keep it at full width, which is what this is, it's going to stay the full length there. Nothing's going to come next to it. These two questions are at half width. So you can go half width, 1/3, even up to 1/4. And then conditional logic we'll look at in just a moment, but that's how you're going to be able to link your questions together. We'll go ahead and close that element and we'll add in our paragraph here. Now these 3 boxes at the top are going to allow you to remove the element. We are always going to be warning you about that change, just so you are aware that the element is going to be removed in case you're doing that on accident. Now the edit button is going to open the option to edit here. And then we've got another copy option, which we'll use in just a moment. So for our paragraph, we're going to keep that reference to paragraph here. And we're going to change the text to match what we have on our form. Once we have our text there, we're going to go ahead and keep it at full width. And we'll go to the next section where we're asking for the referring practice name. We're actually going to use a text box to get this information. And you'll notice we have some different options that we can choose from now. So we will go ahead and make that required. For the reference, we're going to leave that as referring practice name. And then the label will change to referring practice name so that it's correct when it's outward facing. Now, the new field that you're seeing here is an association. The association box controls what we put into Open Dental. So the field selector here is basically your way of telling Flex where you'd like us to store that information in the patient's Open Dental file. So for us, we just created that custom field definition for the referring practice name, and we can link that here as well. So even if you're using custom field definitions, you can still add them into questions on your form. Now, the import button is going to tell us that we want to put this information into that field. The pre-populate button is going to allow us to pull that information from Open Dental into the patient's form. So if you want a patient who's completing a health history update to see the email address that you have on file, we'd want to make sure that that email box is set to pre-populate. Carry over to additional forms is going to be relevant when you have a parent or guardian who's filling out multiple forms for a family. So as that parent is filling out the form, if you want details like their email or their phone number to carry from one form to the next, you can check that box. It's only going to be relevant in one form filling session. So it's not carrying over, over a 6-month period of time. But as they're sitting down to do their family's form, they can only put that information in once and we'll do the rest for them. Now, the format down here is going to let us know what type of information you're putting in. So you'll notice here, if we set this to phone, we've got some different options here that are going to populate. Now, maybe we want to change that back to none, and we'll notice those go away. So just be aware as you're making your edits here that that format may be impacting the field that you have to select from. Now, the width here, we're going to go ahead and go with half width. We want to get very similar information for the referring practice phone number. So we'll just go ahead and copy that field. And then we'll change a few differences here. One thing that you'll notice when we do copy, the reference name is automatically going to change. And that just makes sure that we don't have any issues with the conditional logic or duplicated references. We'll swap out name for phone. And then we'll leave this all the same and change that to half width as well. Now, the next section that we want to have is another header. So we'll go ahead and adjust our label here. We'll leave our reference the same. And we're going to go for a header type of 5 here, and we'll keep that at full width as well. The next section is going to be for patient information. So we'll use our text field, and we will make that required. Let's give it a reference of patient F name. So we'll say patient first name here. Now we're going to associate this with the first name field, and we are going to set it to import. And we'll do half width here as well. Now we're going to do the patient's last name. So again, we'll copy our field here just to make it a bit quicker for us. And we'll change this to L name there. Okay, and we're going to associate that with the last name field, and we'll put that at half width. Now the next section is the date of birth. So we're going to be using the date field for that. We'll make this required as well, and we'll say date of birth. We're going to tie this into the birth date field, and you'll notice your available fields are going to change based on what type of element that you're using as well. We'll go ahead and set that to import, and we'll put it at a half width here. The last thing that we'd like to get from the patient here in this section is going to be their phone number. We'll use a text field for that. And we'll go ahead and change our label. Now, what we're going to do is go ahead and set this to half width. And the next question that I've included is about the patient's gender. Now, the reason we've included this question for today is because we want to outline the fact that you can change the information that's patient-facing, even though there may be matching information in Open Dental. So for us, Open Dental gives us male, female, and unknown. you may want to change the wording a bit of how that is presented to your patients. So we can change our label here. And we can change these options. On the left is going to be what the patient sees, and on the right is going to be what it matches to in Open Dental. So we can give them some additional options here. And they will tie back into the options that are available in Open Dental. Now we can go ahead and import those options here as well. And for details like this, you're always able to change the label that's patient facing to make sure that's suitable for your practice. The next thing that we would like to get is the tooth number. So we'll use a field for that, which is a text field. And then we're going to keep that at full width just for the visual aspect of the form. Now, the next area you'll notice, this is a text field and this is a text area. So if you're asking for some additional information, a text area is a great way to give your patient quite a bit of room if they're making a lot of information, or, in a situation like this where you might be having another office refer, maybe we want to give additional details. So we can insert a text area here and we'll say referral reason. And we'll go ahead and keep that at full width. Now with this one, you'll see a note here on rows. Those rows are just indicating how much real estate the box takes up on the form. The patient can still add as much or as little text as they want. But if we close this here, you can see that we've got a box about this size on the form. If we expanded that to say 20 rows, the box is going to be substantially bigger. So you have the opportunity to decide how much space you want to present to the patient. You can leave that blank by default and it'll look like this over here on the side. Now, the next question that we have is asking if there's special concerns. So we're going to use a radio group for that. The difference between the radio group and the checkbox group is that the radio group can be used when you're looking for one specific answer, and the checkbox group would be used when you're allowing the patient to make multiple selections. So for this example here, we'll go ahead and call it special concerns. We will make it required. And then we're going to go ahead and give some options. Now, the first thing that we'll do is change the text on the left. The text on the left is going to be what the patient sees. The text on the right is going to be what shows in your PDF. So for us, we'll make those match. But there could be some examples of times where you might want the PDF to be different than the information that you allow the patient to select from. And you have those options for customization as well. This little drop down on the side allows the patient to add a visual element, allows the practice to add a visual element. So if you ever want to add any icons, you can do it here. There's also an icon box if you'd like to add some more additional information. Now we're going to close our item here and then add in that conditional question that's available here. So we'll do that with the text field. And we will make it required. Now, a note on making things required. If you are making fields required and they are not set to normally show on the form, they will only be required if they show. So they have to meet the conditional logic requirements first, and then if they do show, then the question is required. But if your patient were to say no to this question, even though it's required, it's allowed to be skipped because it doesn't meet the conditions for the logic. We'll go ahead and change our reference here to additional details. And then we're going to leave that at full width as well. And we're going to enable our conditional logic here. Now we want this question to show. So you get to decide if it would either show or hide. We want it to show, and we're going to add a condition. So the reference that you're using here is going to pull back all of those references we created with our form. So for us, we're going to attach this to special concerns. And when special concerns has a selected value of yes, then we're going to have this logic show. So that's essentially how you're going to link your questions together. You're going to put the conditional logic on the question that you want to show occasionally, depending on the previous question's answer. We'll go ahead and click no here. Now we also want them to go ahead and provide an X-ray. So we can use our image upload field and we'll change our reference. Now, the path that you're looking at here is the Open Dental Images folder that you want the image to go into when it imports. So for us, we'll go ahead and choose Bite Wings. If you're doing things like having the patient take a selfie, you can import that into the patient picture section. You can decide where you want any of those images to be able to fall into. We'll go ahead and keep that full width here too. Now, the last thing that we need to do is go ahead and import it into our signature box. So we'll add our signature element. You'll notice here that that signature is always selected required by default. So even if you forget to add it as a required signature there, it's always going to be required by default for you. Now, once we're done, we'll go ahead and hit save here. And we're going to save it as something else so it doesn't trigger any of our frequencies. And then we can preview our form. So from here, we can see how accurate I was with my duplication. We've got all of our same details and questions here. We've got our conditional question that only shows when they answer yes here. So now what we can do is go ahead and fill out this form. So we'll come back into our form builder. Let's say we just want to copy that form link here and we'll paste it into our browser. And we are ready to go ahead and complete the form. We'll get our practice name. Let's say it's, maybe we'll go for Tooth Dental here. We'll give them a quick phone number. Patient information, let's just say John Doe. And we'll give them a birthday. Actually, let's do 1975, 78 maybe. We'll give them a phone number here. Select our pronoun. Let's say it's for tooth number 15, and we'll say, please evaluate for extraction. Yes, there are some special concerns. The patient is very nervous. We'll give that information to the office. We can go ahead and upload our photo here. We'll send over the panel that we have. And then we can give our signature. Now, when that form comes back into Flex, depending on if this relates to information that was given to you previously, it's either going to automatically file into the patient's form, file into the patient's folder in Open Dental like it normally would, or you may see it coming into the patient's in undocumented here. So in our unmatched documents, we can see the form that we just created is listed for us here. So we can view that selected form. If a patient is sent over to us like this from another provider, we can see all of those details. Maybe we don't have that patient in Open Dental yet. So we can come quickly to Open Dental and add in their information here. And as soon as we add them into Open Dental, we'll be able to match the patient. We'll move our form to the patient here. And if we look at their images, we've got the PDF copy of the form that we just created for them. And we've also got the X-ray that was uploaded with the form. So we'll make it really easy to send information like that across through your patient database there. And if we look in our family section, we've got that custom field definition of referring practice name listed right down here for us at the bottom. So it's really easy to make sure that as you're customizing Open Dental, you're able to translate those customizations over into Flex as well. Now, there's a lot of different creative ways that you can use those forms. We looked at the use of a release form for referral today. You can also use a form for caries risk assessment. You can use it for specialty questions for insurance, or you can make any changes that you need to for your existing new patient forms or health history templates. So we're wrapping up with the form section here. Are there any questions that I need to address, John?
It doesn't look like anything's come in, so I think you're okay to go to the Help Center.
Okay, perfect. So the Help Center is a new resource that we have added in to make it easier to get information from our support team whenever we are maybe out of our normal support hours, or you're just trying to get information on your own time. You can still reach us in the same channels. So via phone, via live chat, or via email, which is going to be support@flexdental.co. Down here in the lower right, you've still got that support bubble that you're used to with our phone number. But you may have noticed if you've recently updated that we've got a search bar available for you here. So if there's a topic that you're trying to peruse and you want to get some additional information on, let's say the timeline, we can search that topic, and then we'll be able to have some articles from the Help Center that are suggested for us based on what's going to be appropriate for that topic. If you want to do a live chat, you can absolutely still hit that live chat button, or you can still give us a call. If you do want to take a look at those articles, you can see the articles that we've written for you. You can hit the expand button to open it up larger in the browser, or you can also hit one of the links that's in the article itself. So let's say we want to take a look at this appointment booked article. Our team and John did a really great job with building the Flex Help Center to be very thorough for all the details that you need. So we have a lot of text guides that are available to you. And if we look at the home button here, you've got access to a whole bunch of video guides, as well as those text guides that we were looking at earlier. The additional information section gives you details on how to join our Facebook group and make sure that you know how to reach us. And then the submit a request button is going to allow you to submit a request to our support team. Very similar in function to what you'd be doing if you were sending us an email. So we'll go ahead and create a request here. Oops, let's say that I want to, maybe I want to find out more about recall reminders. Actually, let's say maybe I want to find out more about review requests. You'll get some articles that are suggested for you so that you can see if maybe one of those articles would handle your question. If you don't see it addressed there, you can always type it into us. So maybe we say, how do I send a patient a Google review request? We can upload images if you have any screenshots or any sort of similar details there that you'd like to provide. And then you can hit the submit button when you're done. It'll let you know that your request was successfully submitted. Now, what you'll notice when you get an email back from us is a listing of potential articles that could be helpful for your ticket that you created. So whether you reach out to us through the support center or you just send us an email, we'll send back some automated responses of articles that may be helpful. Now, we are using a bot to do this, and it's learning how to be a bit more accurate. So if any of these do solve your question, feel free to go ahead and hit yes, close my request, to make sure that we know on our support side that that article has handled your issue. Now, if we look back at our Help Center, there's also a sign-in button up here at the top. You don't have to sign into Flex to use the Help Center. You can access the entire Help Center without signing in to be able to answer or see answers to all of your questions there. However, if you do sign in, there's some perks that are available to you, like being able to see your history for support tickets. You can also see articles that you followed if we make changes, and be able to comment and like articles as well. If you've ever communicated with us in the email form with our support team, we already have your email on file. And you'll see here through this section at the bottom that all you need to do is get a password. When you click that Get Password link, what you're going to see is an email that looks similar to this. You'll have a link here that you can click and be able to create a password. Now, once you're signed in, you'll see the ability here to look at activities. So activities are going to include support requests. You can see that review request ticket that I just submitted. You can also see the previous tickets that I've submitted as well, having some of those be solved or some of them be open. Really easy way to stay on top of what's happening with Flex. Your contributions tab is going to go over details if you've made comments or have had other community interaction there. And the following tab is going to allow you to actually follow articles. So if we look at this article here, you'll see in the corner of each article the ability to follow or unfollow. If you're following an article, it allows you to stay updated when we make changes to it. Once you're signed in, you can also now leave comments, and then you can also upvote and downvote if articles were helpful. That's how we're going to be making the Help Center as supportive as we can for you. So feel free to always provide us any feedback that you have there as well. Now, that is the details that we have for the Help Center. If there's any other questions that we need to answer, I'm happy to answer them either about the forms or the Help Center as well. And of course, if you ever need to reach out to our support team, you can email us at support@flexdental.co, and we're happy to answer any questions that may come up there. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today.